Welcome back to another video, guys. Tonight is UFC Fight Night Winnipeg main event. Gilbert Burns, Mike Malott. I'm really just going to touch on the main event. We can look at some other fighters on the card. I know Charles Jourdain is on the card, but this card kind of sucks. If you want that full in-depth breakdown shit, go to MMA Guru or someone like that, because I'm not going to lie to you. I'm really just about to look at this main event because that's all I personally care about. Anyways, let me pull up this actual card. Maybe we can get a little bit of some stats going, see what's going on with that. Okay. So, Gilbert Burns, Mike Malott. I feel like the UFC is, I wouldn't say they're like, they're not super trying to push Mike Malott, but he's really the only Canadian prospect there is. Granted, he's 35 years old. I don't think he's much of a prospect. That's just my opinion. I haven't really seen anything from him that makes you think he can be a top contender at welterweight or fight for the belt or anything like that. And like I said, he's 35 years old. Gilbert Burns, on the other hand, what is Gilbert now? 39, I believe. 38, 39. 4-fight losing streak. Now, you can find Gilbert as a plus like 280. I've seen him even on DraftKings. I think he's a plus 300. And Mike Malott is a minus 380. In my opinion, that's insane. Like, when I was thinking about this fight, I was like, they're setting Gilbert up, to get eaten up by a young guy in the division, which still might be the case. But when I sat there and I really thought about it and looked at who Gilbert's lost to his last 4 fights, Belal Muhammad, former champion. Jack Della, he was beating until he lost by, that TKO, that knee. Also a former champion. Then you go to Sean Brady, top 5 welterweight. Possibly will be a title challenger in the future at some point. Then you go to Michael Morales, who's definitely going to fight for the belt. So he has not lost to any low-level fighters. He lost to Belal Muhammad right before he won the belt. Lost to Jack Della Maddalena right before he won the belt. Then he lost to Sean Brady and Michael Morales. He's not losing to scrubs by any means. Now, if he lost to Mike Malott, that would be the worst loss of his career, at least at, this point. Gilbert is definitely past his prime. There's no question there. I'm not trying to argue that. But I am trying to argue there's no way in hell I think he should be a plus 280, plus 300. Because you look at Mike Malott, he was supposed to be this really good Canadian prospect. He's dominating Neil Magny pretty much. And then he blows the fight in the 3rd round and gets finished. Then he wins. Since then, I believe he's won 3 in a row. Let's pull up his record, actually. I know his last win was against Kevin Holland, who he kicked in the balls like 4 times. Before that, I want to see who he beat. Okay, Trevin Giles, Charles Radke, and Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland's obviously the biggest name that he's beat, but that fight was just like, if you remember that fight, like, Kevin Holland probably shouldn't have even continued. Now, that's on him at the end of the day. But I really don't even want to, look into that fight too much as that being, a big win because it was so controversial, in my opinion. The Charles Radke win was nice. Again, Charles Radke, solid, not a top contender or anything like that. Get off the screen. And Trevin Giles, same thing, decent win. But before that, the big loss to Neil Magny. He just hasn't. Who has he beat that would make me think he could beat Gilbert Burns, who only has lost to the very best guys in the division? And honestly, when he got just starched by Michael Morales, I was like, damn, it's over for him. And then you saw what Michael Morales did to Sean Brady, and it was like, oh, okay. Michael Morales is just a giant for the division. And will probably end up doing that to most people, not named, Islam Makhachev, Ian Gary. So I don't think we can hold those losses against Gilbert too much to really see where he's at. I think there's still something left in the tank. Again, definitely past his prime, but I still think he's good enough to beat Mike Malott. That's giving away my pick. But yeah, the upper level that Gilbert has reached is obviously much higher than what we've seen from Mike Malott. So I don't think. Yeah, I don't like those odds. I like them if you're betting on Gilbert, but I don't think that shows Gilbert enough respect. Um can we see, yeah, we can see some striking stats on here. Okay, significant strikes landed per minute. Mike Malott is a little bit higher. He's closer to 4. Gilbert's closer to 3. Their percentage 48-48. Absorbed per minute. Gilbert does absorb a little bit more, not too much more, but we know Gilbert's been in some wars and he doesn't mind. Got the dog in here. Tank, get out of here. Go chew your toy out. All up in the mic. People about to hear squeaking and shit. No, go. All right, lay down. Stop making so much noise. But striking defense, Gilbert 52%, Mike Malott 56%. Neither of them have, the best defense, anything like that. We know Gilbert's an absolute dog. Gilbert can win the fight anywhere, on the feet, on the floor. We know he's like however many time jiu-jitsu world champion, some of the best grappling in the sport. Takedowns. Mike Malott's takedown defense is atrocious. Now that I'm looking at that, I definitely could see Gilbert mixing in the wrestling. Yeah, I could see Gilbert, especially if now I know it was like 2 years ago at this point now when Mike Malott lost to Neil Magny, but Magny finished that fight by getting in full mount and just raining down ground and pound. I could definitely see maybe Gilbert doesn't get the finish or be that dominant, but I could see Gilbert taking control of this with the grappling for sure. Yeah, guys, that's my pick. I'm taking Gilbert. If I was betting, the way the odds look, I wouldn't even play with, him finishing the fight or anything like that. I would take the money line straight up, especially if you're parlaying it. Yeah, man. Plus 300 for Gilbert, plus 280, whatever you can get him at on whatever app you use. I would take Gilbert for sure. I just don't think Mike Malott does anything overly well. There's nothing he specializes in. He's a solid fighter, but he hasn't done anything to show me he could beat Gilbert Burns, who only has lost to former champions and possible title challengers in the future. Let's look at the rest of this card. Kyler Phillips and Charles Jourdain. That's actually a really good fight. Kyler Phillips, I believe his last fight, he lost to Lope Dog. And he got finished. He was looking good until he got finished. He's another guy who I think he's 30 years old now. He's been a solid prospect for a while, but hasn't really taken that next leap that people think he maybe can. This is a fight that I think both these guys really need to win. Charles Jourdain is also in that similar boat. I like Charles Jourdain a little bit better because I think he has a more impactful style, especially on the feet. He does a lot of damage. He has some flashy techniques that tend to work, at least, against the guys he's been fighting. He lost to John Silva, and there's no shame in that. John Silva is probably going to fight for the belt soon, and obviously that was up at 145. This weight class probably suits him a little bit better, just physicality-wise. So that's a really good fight there. I think I'm going to rock with Charles Jourdain. And then, the rest of this card is just like, you got Jasmine Jasdavicius, Jai Herbert, Thiago Moises. Thiago Moises, every time I pick him, he loses, and every time I don't pick him, he wins. He's another one where it's tough to tell. Like, fights I think he should win, he just doesn't do enough, and then fights I don't think he should win, he ends up winning. Yeah, you get to the prelims, it's I'm not breaking that shit down. Main event breakdown. Gilbert Burns versus Mike Malott. I'm rocking with Gilly. Let me know who you guys think is gonna win. That fight happens tonight, so I'm about to upload this right now. Thank you for watching another video. This is gonna be like a little main event preview series, maybe. Maybe not a series. I'm just doing it because this card kind of sucks, but yeah. Main event preview, Gilbert Burns, Mike Malott. I'll see you in the next video.